Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to have you here. My name is Trevor Kimball. I am the president of Integrity Practice Sales, and today I am joined by Tracey Gutzmer. Is it Gutzmer?
It's
Gutzmer.
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 Yes.
I was right.
Gutzmer. Yes, you
Okay,
were correct. You're good.
fantastic.
Yes.
And her company is Dental Credential.
Yes.
And I have talked to a lot of insurance people, dental credentialing people over my career as a consultant and a broker. And Tracey's the real deal. And so I was super excited to have her join me today for an interview that I hope is going to be powerful for every practice owner, as well as anyone who's thinking about practice ownership, looking at practices. The goal is to build your confidence, to demystify the PPO, and to give you some really practical tools and knowledge that you can use in your practice or future practice. And so with that, welcome, Tracey.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Trevor. I am happy to be here.
I'm super happy you're here.
We'll talk all about everything
It's going to be
anybody's ever wanted to know.
Great time.
Yeah, it'll be yes. Insurance, everyone's favorite topic when we're dealing with dental offices. So
yeah. My first question is, why should a doctor care about making sure that their PPOs are shipshape and all the things we're going to talk about? What's kind of at stake here?
I've been in this transition space probably about 5-6 years now, mostly just transition space. Like I said, when we dentistry, I've been in for about 25 years, but it's in this transition space. That's one of the biggest things I hear from teams when I can talk to them is they're like, are you going to be able to help us clean up our insurance? Because there's a lot that goes on with it. And again, it just becomes really messy. So taking that time to say, I'm really going to figure this out so that I can make a plan moving forward. And again, what is our goal? Our goal is, and I get this. My dad was a dentist. I grew up in dentistry. And my dad used to say this, like, Tracey, I didn't go to school to run a business, even though I did. I went to school to be a dentist. And I want to take care of my patients. Like, that is the goal. So, sometimes when we start talking about insurance and everything else, everyone's like, oh, we're just focused on the income. We're focused on this. Well, not necessarily, but it is, if you have contracts that are strategic and smart and simple, not only does it help you as an owner, because again, in a business, we're all here to make money. I mean, if you want to work for free, you could. So, but we're all here to be successful and to make money. But I understand we want to have exceptional patient care. Well, think about it. If your contracts are better and everyone understands it, your patients are also going to win with that because you're able to give them better estimates. There's no surprise bills. There's no, oh, we have to call this patient now and say they owe us another $400 because we didn't estimate correctly because we went off the wrong fee schedule. Oh, this insurance company didn't pay for this. There can be a lot of things here because if you think about it, why do patients get upset? It usually has to do with billing. If you look at Google reviews and whatever, if you find negative Google reviews, it's usually about billing. Not always. I'm not saying that that's the case, but a lot of times it's, oh, they overbilled. They didn't take my insurance and didn't tell me. They didn't do this. They didn't do this. And it all comes down to billing.
Yeah.
So if
important.
we want our patients to be happy, making sure that we as an office are doing everything we can to help them with that. And that comes back to our insurance contracts. So when we talk about contracts for insurance offices or for offices, right? You start looking, what are we in? And what happens is there can be a lot of crossover and there can be what I like to call over-credentialing, meaning that we're in multiple networks. You wouldn't be surprised how many times I will talk to offices and I'll say, okay, what contracts do you hold? And I get a very blank stare. And honestly, I've been in dentistry for about 25 years. When I was a practice manager, I really didn't know a whole lot about this. And what happens is contracts continue to build. So especially if you're an older dentist, okay, you may have started out in 2 contracts, but then salespeople come into the office throughout the years. People make phone calls, they hand you these pretty fee schedules, and you sign up. And what essentially you're doing is just stacking contract on top of contract. So I look at things, kind of from a bigger picture to say, okay, we need to define who the contracts are with so that you're able to look at your fee schedules and also to look at it and go, does all of this make sense? So why is it important to a doctor? Well, you actually may be hurting yourself. You might have so many contracts in place that all of a sudden the fee schedules start competing with one another and nobody knows why. I'll talk to offices a lot and they'll say, Tracey, we have this fantastic fee schedule from, a certain insurance company. How come I never get it? Well, it's buried underneath all of these other fee schedules that may be lower. And so those are all paying first, if you want to
Yeah.
look at it that way.
They're never going to default to the highest paying
No,
fee schedule.
I mean, yeah, no one's ever going to default to that. So we start looking at, it's really important to know how your insurance plans all fit together so that if you're in insurance, if you're fee for service, great. But the reality is a lot of dental offices cannot be fee for service due to demographics, due to what's going on in their area. So if we have to be in insurance plans, let's be smart about it to make sure that we're maximizing our reimbursements.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think maximizing reimbursements really hits on one of the major things, because at the end of the day, if you optimize your PPO contracts and if you are doing all the things we're going to talk about, you will take home more money. And remember, you're already paying for your labs, you're paying for your staff to be there, you're paying for your facility. Those are fixed costs, or those costs aren't going away.
Right.
And so every dollar that you get additionally from the PPO, that flows to you as the doctor. So
Correct.
every little change here is more money in your pocket. That's number one. Number
Yes.
two is it just simplifies everything. It
Yes.
simplifies things for your team. They're happier. It simplifies things for you. If you do go to sell your practice or you're looking to buy a practice, it makes that transition a whole lot easier. That's the other major reason why I think that this is so important. So more
Yes.
money in your pocket, a simpler life for you and your team.
Yes. Yes.
Super important.
And there's a lot of times that I will work with offices and offices will contact me and say, we don't even know what fee schedule we're supposed to go by. So I try to really come back then and talk to doctors. Okay, when you have a new patient, what do? You come in, you have your x-rays, you have your probing depths, you take their medical history. We do all of the things, right? And then you do your exam so that you're able to create a treatment plan for that patient. Think about that and think about your insurance plans. Same thing. You need to develop a map. I mean, that's what I call them, a map.
Yeah.
That really shows you what you're in and how you're contracted. Being a network and being contracted can be two different things. Where do you hold your
Interesting.
contracts? So your contracts are where you sign, right? And where our fee schedule is. So I encourage offices, develop this map that is like your treatment plan for your patients. Once you have that map and you've identified these are all of the insurance plans that we have in the office and where they fall contractually. So are they falling under, do we have a direct contract with them? And we can talk a little bit about what that means, Trevor. But,
Yeah.
do they have a direct contract? Do they have an umbrella network? Where
Yeah.
is your fee schedule?
Those umbrella networks take
They'll,
something that's already complicated and just ratchet it up. It's crazy.
And-
And the leased networks, umbrella networks, all of these different terms. Let's let's stop for a second and just talk about some of these terms.
Okay. Here's how I like to explain an umbrella network. Okay. An umbrella network. So we're all talking on a contract level. So
Mhm.
we back it up for a second. You can have a direct contract or you can have an umbrella contract. So let's make sure that we understand a direct contract. A direct contract is a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay. So, and this is the easiest way. We can explain it 50 different ways, but this
Mhm.
is how I want everybody to think about it. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. We're going to use Delta Dental for an example. You go to Delta, you sign a contract with Delta, you have a fee schedule with Delta, you are in network with Delta. You are
It
now
makes the
not
map
in,
very easy.
exactly, Delta, Delta, done.
Mhm.
And then that's it though. You're not
Right.
in network with Cigna because you signed a Delta contract. Okay. Then you can have an umbrella network. You can also have a leased agreement, third party payers. A lot of times they're kind of interchangeable. There can be some semantics involved. But for
Mhm.
our purposes, when we think about an umbrella network, I want you to think about as a building. Okay. And this building, just we'll say it's a condo building or an apartment building. I don't care. And at the
Great.
top level, we're going to say is the penthouse. Again, the penthouse is fine. So in this penthouse houses a company. Okay, so we're going to use Carrington because they're a popular umbrella throughout the company or throughout the country. So Carrington, now they do have some of their own insurance plans. So don't, again, let's not get into the details. But generally, Carrington, if we go back to the building, they're at that penthouse level. You would
Mhm.
negotiate with Carrington, you sign your fee schedule with Carrington, and you have one contract, one fee schedule. Okay.
Great.
And that's at the penthouse. Then what happens is once you get credentialed and approved and into the Carrington network, that fee schedule is then pushed out to all of the carriers that are underneath it. Okay. And each one of those carriers in the apartment building is a condo. So that penthouse, that fee schedule has to trickle down all the way and hit all of those apartment buildings. Okay. Or all of those apartments in the building. So, really, an umbrella network. Okay. One fee schedule, multiple insurance companies. Now,
Okay.
there can be a lot of things that go on within umbrella networks. I don't know, that might be getting in the weeds a little bit too much, but there can be a lot of stuff that goes on with them. But the main thing to think about, umbrella networks, there's a lot of pros and there can be some cons. The pros are usually the fee schedules are generally pretty good. The cons are they're harder to manage because again, we have all those apartments underneath, and those apartments have a little leeway. So they
Right.
don't have to pick up your practice. They can move out of the umbrella network. So they're a little harder for offices to keep track of sometimes. So
Mhm.
that's where, just depending on your strategy within the office, right? It depends on what you're trying to accomplish with the umbrella versus direct contracts. So, what I see happen a lot of times, though, is that we have a bunch of direct contracts and a bunch of umbrella networks. Well, they start to compete. And that doesn't help your practice. So, again, at a basic level, looking at these direct and these umbrella networks and deciding what does your practice have? How do they overlap? Do they overlap? And then what can I do in order to fix it, in order to make it simplified and smart, right? So we just want to have smarter contracts all the way around.
Yeah. So I'm a dentist. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, how do I do this? How
Here's
do
how,
I make my map?
yeah, how do you make your map? You literally call the insurance companies.
Okay.
Here's the thing. People are like, "Oh, can you check it out online?" Well, you can, but then we're hoping that the website information the insurance companies have is correct. So, what I would recommend when you
Mhm.
build this map is you take your top 15 insurance companies, 10 insurance companies, whatever. When you look at your demographic of your practice, oh, we have a bunch of Cigna, a bunch of MetLife, a bunch of Aetna. You call that insurance company, you give them your tax ID number, and you ask them, how is our office in network with Aetna? So let's say you're on the phone with Aetna.
Okay.
How
So
is
that's the
my,
magic question.
yep, how is my
How?
office network? And they'll start asking some questions. And you can always say, what I'm trying to figure out is, especially if you know you're in network because you're taking write-offs, right? So you're in network as an office. You're going to say, okay, I know that we're in network with Aetna. Can you tell me how? Do we have a direct contract with you, Aetna? Or are you showing us under a third party or a lease network? Because they'll be able to tell you that you're going to fall under one of those categories. So if they say you have a direct contract, well, now you have a signed contract with Aetna. Okay, now you know what you're going to have to do, or at least it gives you a starting point. If they say, nope, you don't have a direct contract, you're coming through Carrington or you're coming through Connection, they'll be able to tell you the lease network that you're coming through. Then you can build that on your map as well to know, okay, my Aetna fee schedule
Mm-hmm.
is coming underneath Connection.
Right.
I use Connection for now. There are times they'll tell you multiple things. So they'll say, well, you have a direct contract with us, but we see behind it Connection, Carrington, um, Premier. I mean, whatever the umbrella is. Okay, well, now you have some stacking going.
Okay.
So what does that mean to you? That
Yeah.
means that your Aetna fee schedule is paying first because they're telling you it's paying first. And then those other contracts are lined up behind. So
Okay.
again, it gives you an idea to be able to build this map and gives you a starting point.
Got it.
So when people hire me to do this, and I work with company or doctors all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
that's literally what I do. Is I spend time on the phone with the insurance companies, and sometimes you got to call twice because the first time you don't really get the answer, and you're like, I'm confused. So I'm going to call them because it didn't make sense. And I will start digging in that so that we can build the map so that I can give direction on here's how we can optimize your fee schedules. Here's how we can maximize your insurance reimbursements and try to make it easier again for the team, which coming from a practice management standpoint and dealing, working with admin teams for years,
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing. Insurance is confusing enough. So how can we make it as easy as possible for the team so
Yeah.
that it's not so messy? Because when it's
Exactly.
messy, it's hard for us to give accurate estimates to our patients. It's hard for
Mm-hmm.
us to budget and predict and know what's coming into the practice because our fee schedules are all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So great advice. So we're making the map.
Making the
We're
map.
doing that by calling and asking, how am I credentialed
Yep.
with
How am
you?
I in network? How
How
am
am
I
I in
showing in
network? Okay.
network?
How am I
Yes.
showing in network? And so that's the magic question. They're going to say, you have a direct contract, or we see you under this third party, or they're going to say, you have a direct contract and we see you under this third party. And we want clarification there. So we build out this map of all of our, you said sort of top 15 insurances. Um, we go down the list. Now, sometimes, like I know for a lot of doctors, and I know Delta's a little different, but I think the other insurance companies have a similar thing. There might be 10 different Deltas, right? Delta of Illinois, Delta Dental of California, Delta Dental of Washington, right? You have all of these different, but the same. Are those all different phone calls, or is that one phone call?
It's one.
And
So
is that for Delta or also for Cigna, also for anything else?
It's one phone call across the country. So
Okay.
for Delta, and a lot of people do get confused about that. You're going to credential and do your ownership changes with the Delta of your state. So if
Okay.
you're in Delta if you're in California,
Mhm.
Delta of California is who we're going to credential with, do ownership changes when you purchase a practice. Delta of California then pushes out your fee schedule nationally to all of the other Deltas. So Delta of Minnesota, Delta of Illinois, Delta of North Carolina, all ones are underneath your same Delta contract with.
Okay.
So have to worry about that. If you are PPO Premier or
Mhm.
Delta, your PPO across the country for
Okay.
all of those other Deltas. And you can pretty safely assume that that is true. So if you know that this is your contract with Delta, the rest of the Deltas are the same. So you do not
Got it.
have to make another. Same thing with the Cigna, same thing with United Concordia. It's all just one phone call to test which one or how you're showing in network. And like I said, you can lead them a little bit too. Is it a direct contract? Like, do we have
Mhm.
a relationship with you, Aetna? Or are you showing it through somebody else? Because sometimes you have to lead them a little bit to give you the information that you're looking for.
Right. Right. Um, a number of doctors too might be receiving checks from the insurance company, but they are not in network. Maybe they're billing out of network for that particular insurance,
Yep.
but they're contracted with some other insurances. And in that case, they'll just say, you're,
You don't hold a contract.
yeah,
Yep.
no
We
contract.
show you as out of network.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Here's just a little tip too.
Mm-hmm.
If you have multiple doctors, make sure you're checking each doctor
Mm.
because you'd be surprised that stuff gets lost in the shuffle. If you're a solo doc, and because when you call into the insurance companies too, they're gonna want your tax ID, they're gonna want your doctor's NPI, and they're gonna want the address of the practice. If I'm working with an office that is multiple providers, I'm checking each provider for that insurance company because again, you'd be surprised what you find. Especially if one of the doctors is a little more senior and then we keep
Mm-hmm.
having associates add on. Sometimes the credentialing gets confusing or gets, isn't followed through, or part of it is followed through. I mean, it just kind of depends. So I would make sure that you're checking all the doctors because ideally at a practice, unless you have a different vision and there's a reason for doing this,
Mm-hmm.
most practices want all doctors to be pretty uniform. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, unless you have something built in the contract or
Sure.
something that, oh, this doctor doesn't take insurance, that would make sense to me. But then you also, by checking those other doctors, if you know that that is the situation in your practice, like, oh, we have this doctor that comes, a specialist that comes in 1 day a week.
Mm-hmm.
But we're billing under our tax ID, but they're supposed to be out of network. We'll double check, make sure that
Yeah.
that doctor is out of network because I've seen contracts carry over um, to different practices from existing practices. So, and sometimes in the
Huh.
contracts with your insurance companies, they can do that. So they'll just add you on. And the next thing you know, you're in network when you didn't think you were supposed to be in network.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen that before, certainly with the umbrellas a lot
Yes.
too, is I've been
Yes.
out of network with this provider for a long time. My patients are used to it. We've got it going on. We're actually doing pretty well with it because they're making up the difference between our UCR fees. So we're basically receiving UCR for this insurance. And then
Yep.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we're getting the Carrington fee schedule and everything has changed because they were
Yeah.
picked up.
Yep. And insurance companies, 2025 was a really interesting year.
Okay.
So I wouldn't really, they're not called umbrella agreements, but we'll call them like shared network agreements. Okay.
Okay.
So kind of the same concept
Mm-hmm.
again for our purposes, and to keep it simple. But I'm going to give you an example. So an example was Cigna and Humana. Okay. Cigna, if you had a direct contract with Cigna, so again, we had that 1-to-1 ratio, your office signed up with Cigna. They announced as of November 1st, I think they announced it in September or something, but as of November 1st, well, they were going to share a network with Humana. So if you have a contract, direct contract with Cigna, you're now in Humana's network. Okay. Now, the rationale behind this, I believe, my own opinion, is so that they can tell you you can attract in more patients, right? Because your fee schedule still is the same. So let's kind of break that down. You have a contract with Cigna, you have a fee schedule with Cigna. Cigna then went out and partnered with Humana, however you want to look at it. And November 1st, you now are in network with Humana under your Cigna fee schedule.
Okay.
Okay. So for some offices, this is beneficial. You have a great Cigna fee schedule. You're trying to build patients. You're in growth mode. You're trying to attract people in. Well, now you can say, well, we're also part of Humana, but you're getting your Cigna fee schedule. Okay. Other offices, exactly what you just said. This is not very good because their Humana patients were always out of network. And now all of a sudden you just took population of patients and now they're getting a discount. Now they're getting, you're losing money technically because they went from paying full fee to now they're not paying full fee. So there are things you can do for that. You're not locked in. You can do what's called an opt out, which means you basically go back to Cigna and say, hey, we don't want this. Please do not send our information to Humana. We want to still be out of network with Humana. So you can do that. And sometimes, people will say, well, shouldn't the insurance companies notify us of this? They probably do in some ways. It either comes in the mail and none of us pay attention, so we throw it. Comes in a fax, comes in an email. It's another message from the insurance companies, and we don't pay attention. And the next thing you know, we're getting our EOBs back. And now we're in network and we're like, wait a minute, we don't understand what just happened. So that's usually what happens is something along those lines.
Interesting. Ooh, okay. So
It's a lot, Trevor.
This is a lot. It's a lot. It's kind of overwhelming.
Definitely can.
But just to bring it back, this is about putting more money in the doctor's pocket. It's about simplifying the life of the doctor and their team, and making things actually better for patients as well, because the insurance estimations and everything else are clearer and more in line.
Yes.
So it's important. I'd love to back up for a second.
Sure.
And we've been talking about contracts and leasing and the umbrella networks, making the map, cleaning things up. Once you make the map, then it seems like, okay, next you make that strategy in order to cut the low fee schedules that are blocking you from the higher fee schedules, essentially. As part of this process as well, it seems like, or you've mentioned before to me, that doing regular fee increases are super important.
So one of the most important things you can do as a practice owner is increasing your fees annually, your UCRs, your master fee schedule, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And there's multiple reasons for doing this. Number one reason is obviously as inflation and things like that go up, we want to continue to respond to what's going on with the market. Okay. Number two, the insurance companies look at your fee schedules. So when you're sending in your claims, and here's the thing, really, the insurance companies probably have more data than you and I would ever even know they have data. And so they're looking at, oh, Dr. Smith has this office and they're sending in, X amount of dollars for a crown. Okay. If you leave that from 1982, and that crown has been the same cost since 1982, what happens is you'll go to the insurance companies and say, well, I want a better reimbursement. I'm only getting this. And the insurance companies are going to look at it and go, well, wait a minute, you're only billing this. It's like a 15% write-off. Like, what else do you want us to do? So you tie your own hands, right? By not showing them what you want to be billing. So the lower your fees are, if they're not in line with where they should be, you actually can be doing yourself a disservice. And, another thing with that is, and here's what I saw happen, I've done a lot of consulting and things like that before I kind of dove into this insurance world. And like when COVID happened, nobody wanted to increase their fees. We're trying to help our patients. We don't want to do that, which really is fantastic, is a nice thing to do. The problem with that is then you hold your fees for 2 or 3 years, and now you're sitting in like the 40th percentile, the 50th percentile of where your fees should be. And now you got to do a jump, which is much more noticeable to patients when you're going to do a huge jump than if we just do a smaller increase every single year. So not only does it help you with your fee negotiations, your fee schedules, things like that, because you have a little bit more, legs to stand on, if you will, as you're increasing your fees, but it's also really better for your patients. Instead of doing some huge fee increase because we thought we were being nice by holding those fees. Now we got to catch all the way back up again. Otherwise, we're always behind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that sometimes that one-time jump is appropriate, but
100%.
of course, but
100%.
it's a lot easier for both patients and for insurance companies. And I really like the point you made about if you don't submit your UCR fees, because I think a lot of offices make this mistake. Do you see this a lot? Yeah.
Yes. They submit their allowables. Yeah.
Right. If you submit your allowables instead of your UCR fees, then the insurance company looks at it and they just say, oh, we're doing great. We're giving you pretty much everything. How could you possibly ask for more?
Yes.
And so if they don't have that source of truth, which is your cash fee or your UCR fee, then they're operating off of faulty data and feeling a lot more benevolent than they actually are.
Yep. Yeah.
And this goes for the doctors practicing in town everywhere. I mean, you're kind of doing them a disservice as well, because
correct.
They're looking at the totality of the fees that are submitted. And
yes. And you 100%, that is 100% true. The other thing is just kind of, and so actually, like if you wanted to say, what is one thing to make sure that all doctors that are watching this today take away, make sure you're billing in your UCRs, like non-negotiable. Make sure that is going in.
When and how do you do that?
Well, it should just be set in your software system. So in your software system, you have your master fee schedule. It's how your settings are in your software. So whether or not you're using EagleSoft or Dentrix or Open Dental, it doesn't matter. It's how it, and so you should have it set to be sending out your master fee schedule, your UCRs to every insurance company all the time. That never changes. And so, I've heard from doctors before, like, wow, but then we have to have a write-off. Well, yes, you do. And I would want to know that write-off because, again, that's good data as an owner to be able to look at your revenue cycle, right? I mean, because when we start talking about insurance plans and what you have, I mean, that's your money. That's how you get paid. That's how everything comes in, minus your cash paying patients. So that to me, it is a little bit mind boggling sometimes that no one pays attention to that, because I'm like, well, that's how you're getting paid. Like, let's make sure that you're not doing something that is hurting you. Because we can talk about production all day long. We can talk about how to increase production and how to do this. But you might as well focus on something you can control, which is your fee schedules and your optimization for that.
Absolutely.
So 100% send in your UCRs. And second tip is, if you notice on your EOBs, and you can talk to your team about this, if you notice or talk to your team and tell them to look at it and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that it's not. If there's not, if you're submitting in your UCR and there is no write-off, you are too low.
Mm,
So, because
interesting.
you're getting full fee. So if you, and I see this a lot on fluoride. So like, let's just say you have fluoride set. And again, I work nationally, so fluoride's going to be different,
Sure.
fees all throughout the country. But if you, I'll just give an example. Your fluoride is $40. Okay. And you send that in and the insurance company pays you and you're in network and you have a contract with them. I'm not talking out of network, and they pay you $40, you're too low. You're leaving money on the table, because
Yeah.
if you increase it to 45, maybe they'll pay you 45, or maybe they'll pay you 42. If you increase it to 50, maybe unless you know what their fee schedule is, that's an arbitrary number in your head that's out there. But so that would be another thing that I would be having teams look at when we're talking about fee schedules. Is there anything coming from the insurance companies that we are in network with and there is no write-off? And it's not an alternate benefit like, oh, a composite filling to amalgam. Like, I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about just code to code, right? One code,
Yep.
here's the fee. So um, because if we get into alternate benefits, it could be a little bit different. So
What is, because I know for a number of doctors, they are going to want, let's use that fluoride example. Um, Maybe the insurance would pay 45. Maybe they want to increase it to 55,
mhm,
but sometimes I imagine that they would want to give maybe their cash paying patients a discount on
mhm,
that.
mhm.
Is that something you can just easily do with a cash discount? Is that frowned upon? Are we in the gray area of
You're in the gray.
okay.
Legally, you are
Mhm.
not supposed to adjust fees. Whatever the one fee is. Now, people are like, well, wait a minute, Tracy, because I have to adjust my allowable fee.
Mhm.
Yes, you do, because that is part of your contract. But legally, if we charge one patient 100, we charge another patient 100, we charge the other patient 100. That's
Right.
the legal part of it. Um, it's hard because there's a lot of us all throughout the country that are like, well, we want to give cash discounts. We have membership plans. We have this, we have that. So take it for what it's worth. But that legally, the insurance companies say that they don't like that, because then again, we're giving patients different fees. And
Right.
so it is generally frowned.
Got it.
And we'll leave it at that.
Sure. Leaving that there, that's great. That's some really good, helpful information.
Now, if we're talking about fee negotiations and things like that, usually I will tell you, like, if somebody would contact me and say, "Hey, Tracy, I want help with fee negotiations and figuring things out," and I'd say, "Okay, no problem. Are you submitting your UCRs, your master fee schedule?" No. Okay. I want you to do that for at least 6 months, and then you're going to call me back, like, or I'm going to call you back, because I got to get that data going in order that the insurance companies can see that. So there's some opportunity to be able to tell the insurance companies, like, hey, I'm going to be increasing my fees. But if data is data. So the more concrete we can have things, the easier it is. So I would say that once you put it in, just you put in the UCRs and you get it going. Um, a lot of people will ask, how do you determine your fee schedule? So
Mm,
I'll hit on that real quick.
great. Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
the biggest one that I used and I've recommend is called the NDAS. So the
I use it
NDAS
all the
book.
time. Yep.
Yep, a lot of people use it. It's very popular and it's reasonable.
Hmm.
They gather data from all over the country. They gather it from insurance company submissions as well as like surveys and other things. So it's a big compilation of all of that data. And then what they do is they break it down by zip code and they break it down by percentile. So you can get it, you can get it on USB. It's usually a couple $100 a year. I mean, we're not talking a huge cost. And it's a couple $100. You can get that USB or you can get a book. I don't care, whatever
Hmm.
floats your boat. And look at your zip code and say, okay, where are my fees and where do I want to? I recommend you're at least at the 80th percentile. You don't really want to be lower than that. If you want to be higher than that, that's fine. Again, your vision, your prerogative, do what feels best for you. But I would say at a minimum, you at least want to be at the 80th.
Yeah. We always say when you're raising fees, it's usually more important that your team it buys into the new fees than your patients, because your
Oh,
team will kind of convey whether they think it's reasonable or not. And the way we like to do that often is by presenting that NDAS survey and say, kind of, here's an objective thing that's zip code specific for this area. But before I show it to you guys, I want to know, where do you think the dentistry that you do in this practice falls compared to all the other dentists in the area?
I love that.
And in almost every case, they'll be like, oh, we're in the top 90th percent. We're in the top 80% for sure. At least that, maybe 85. And then you just say, okay, great. I totally agree with you. I'm super excited about this. It might not work for every team, but I think that process, and then you show them and you say, okay, here are the fees for this. We're just going to charge fair fees. We don't want to charge too much. We don't want to charge too little. It's an easy way to get the team to buy into that fee structure and, be ready to go. So.
And, interestingly enough, when we talk about fees and fee increases and things like that, the biggest thing with fee increases, people are always afraid. Oh, the patients are going to be worried. This is what's going to happen. Do they? Then you might get some. I'm not saying that you don't, but especially if you're a heavy insurance practice, most of those patients aren't even going to notice, because it's going to be a bigger write-off for you initially, because then you can negotiate, then you can make smart contracts, then you can do whatever. But really, from a standpoint, I had somebody tell me this a long time ago when we were talking about jumping, like they were at like the 40th percentile. And so then we were talking about getting them up to the 80th. And they were like, well, do you think we should do steps? Like say, well, 1 year we'll do this and 1 year we'll do this. Well, we started diving into their patient base, and like 90% of their patient base were PPO patients. I'm like, they're not even, that 90%'s never going to even notice it. So to do a step up plan like that, you might as well just rip off the Band-Aid and handle the other 10%.
Yep.
And you're 100% correct. When we start talking about teams and front office teams, we could talk about that. That'd be a whole nother
I would love to do that.
conversation.
Yeah.
But your front office team, they make or break a lot of things that go on in the practice, because they're the ones that are always the face. They're the ones that are taking the phone calls, having to handle patients. So you make a fantastic point. If your team is on board with anything you do, changes, fee schedules, and that can go to all facets of the office, your life is a whole lot easier as an owner or a doctor, because they're behind you. So when they're not behind you, you make a very good point that they then can turn things quickly, because they're not in support of the fee increase or whatever you want to look at. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a great talking point.
Tracey, do we have just a few more minutes to go over some transition elements?
Of course. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yes, I'm good.
Since we've been talking about kind of practice owners and what you can do in your practice to build your map, detangle your contacts or your contracts, get the right fee schedules in place, submit new fees on an annual basis, ensuring you're submitting your UCR fees, making sure your UCR fees are correct, all of these different things that really apply to practice owners. Let's approach this briefly from the practice owner's perspective. If you're approaching a transition in the next 2 to 3 years, are there any steps above and beyond the ones we've already talked about that you want to take in order to prepare your practice for that transition from a PPO perspective?
From a seller's perspective,
the
biggest change that you can make is making sure your contracts make sense. Because if your allowables, if you're looking to sell 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out, you have a valuation that is going to be done for your practice. And increase in your fees by doing, or I would say in your collections, okay? The increase in your collections by doing nothing different is going to make a very big impact, or can make a very big impact on the bottom line dollar that you are receiving for that sale.
Yep.
So if you know that in 3 to 5 years you're going to be selling, this is the perfect time to do that. You know, sometimes doctors will be like, well, it's 3 to 5 years. It's fine. I collect this, I do this, I do this. Well, what happens if we spend 6 months, 8 months getting things reorganized, renegotiated, and smarter? And our collections go up by $100,000. We do nothing different except making sure our contracts are better, making sure we're negotiating fee schedules. You're, yes, going to get, 3 to 5 years. In 8 months, you'll make some progress. So you're going to automatically start getting that. But to me, the bottom line is that is going to be a big chunk of change that you're going to get when you sell your practice.
Yeah, I think that's really good and really solid advice. A lot of great information. Tracey, I've kept you long enough. I really appreciate your
Happy to be
time.
here.
I'm happy to be here too,
Yeah.
despite my camera troubles and whatnot. But
Yeah.
this has been great.
Wonderful.
I will
Yes.
be sure to put all of your information on the screen and
Fantastic.
ways for people to contact you.
Perfect.
Phone number and email are good.
Yeah, completely fine. And I'm
Great.
happy to help. So,
Awesome.
all right.
Well, thank you so much for educating me and educating the doctors
welcome.
watching this. And
You're
I'm
welcome.
super excited to get the message out there that you can detangle the PPOs. And so,
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you again so much for having me. It's been a
thank you.
good convo. And
Yeah.
again, I think the more education we can get out there and the more people understand it, the better we all are. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
100%.
Wonderful. All right, Trevor.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm glad we finally did this. Amazing.
Yeah, I know.
We got it
I'm
done.
happy. Yay. Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
Trevor.